Hi, second grade. We are back today to read more about Abraham Lincoln. So before we dive into our text today, I'm going to go over a couple vocabulary words with you. The first word is politics. Politics is the way that people in a group or country make decisions. The next word is cottage. A cottage is a small, simple house. The next word is Congress. The Congress is the group of people who are elected to make laws in our country. And this picture right here, which is our nation's Capitol building, this is where Congress makes decisions today. And then the last word is abolish. And to abolish is to end something. So the heading of this section is called Victories and Vows. A vow is like a promise that somebody makes. This time, Abe won the election and went to the state legislature in Vandalia, Illinois's capital. There, Abe renewed his friendship with John Todd Stuart, who was also a lawmaker. Stuart let Abe borrow his law books. Abe studied by littles whenever he could. When Abe got his lawyer's license, he was invited to join John Stuart's company in Springfield, Illinois. Abe campaigned to move the Illinois capital to Springfield. He wanted his new town to be an important place. Before long, Springfield was the capital, and Abe was at the center of Illinois politics. Abe spoke out against slavery and lynch mobs, the crowds who hunted down and hanged escaped slaves. But Abe was not one of the abolitionists trying to ban slavery. Abe believed the government should keep new territories free, not try to abolish slavery where it already existed. So this caption says Abe's seat at the state legislature. And then down here we have a map, and the key says slave states. So all of the yellow states are states that allowed slavery. The orange states are free states. So these are all the states that they did not have slavery. And then the grayish states are territories. So they're not states yet. The caption says, when Abe first spoke out against slavery, all the southern and a few northern states were slave states. There was great debate about whether slavery would be allowed in new territories. Abe was a busy lawyer of 30 when he met a woman who seemed his opposite. Abe was tall, thin, awkward, and unrefined. Mary Todd was short, plump, stylish, and charming. He came from a log cabin. She had been raised in luxury and attended fancy private schools. Mary spoke French and knew all the latest dance steps. But beneath the surface, Abe and Mary had much in common. Both cared deeply about justice, politics, and poetry, and both had lost their mother at a young age. So on this page, it says, Lincoln's look. Abe's rumpled clothes made it clear to people that his mind was on more important things than fashion. His long legs poked from his plain pant leg. His boots were dusty from walking. Abe carried his papers in a tall stovepipe hat that made him seem even taller than his 6'4". Once people met him, they never forgot Abe. And the caption on this page says, Mary Todd opposed slavery, but her father owned slaves on his large farm in Kentucky. Mary happened to be the cousin of Abe's lawyer friend, John Todd Stuart. By the time Abe was 33, he had realized that Mary Todd was the woman for him. Mary was very popular, but she chose Abe. They got married on November 4th, 1842, and started saving to buy a house. Within a year, Abe had a son, Robert, and had bought his first home, a cottage on a nice street in Springfield. The Lincolns added rooms to their cottage, and Mary gave birth to another son. But Eddie died when he was not quite 4. Shortly after his death, Mary gave birth to William and then Thomas, who became known as Tad. Abe doted on his boys, especially little Tad. Mary loved them too, but she never quite got over Eddie's death. So the caption on this page says the Lincoln home in Springfield, Illinois. So it's showing us what Lincoln's house looked like. And then the caption here says Abe and Tad. So this is a photo of Abe and his son. The heading on this page says On the Move. Abe was elected to Congress, so the Lincolns moved to Washington, D.C. Abe saw slave markets in the country's capital. The Constitution said all men are created equal. How could people be sold like animals? Abe proposed a law to abolish slavery in Washington. Remember, abolish means end. The law did not pass, and Abe lost his second term. Ending slavery would not be easy. Abe went back to Springfield, but soon joined the 8th Circuit Court. This traveling court brought justice to small towns like the trials he'd seen as a young man. Abe spent half the year sleeping on farmhouse floors or sharing beds in crowded taverns. Between cases, the lawyers joked, sang, and played cards. Abe could forget fancy manners and help simple folk. So the caption here says, the 8th Circuit Court served the entire state of Illinois. The judge, Abe, and the other lawyers traveled 500 miles on horseback, then on the newly built railroads. The work was challenging. The lawyers rode into town, found clients, then presented their cases right away. One time in New Salem, Abe was asked to defend an old friend named Duff, who was accused of murder. The witness claimed he saw Duff killed by the light of the full moon. But with an almanac, Abe proved the moon was just a sliver on that night, so the witness was lying. Duff was free by nightfall. Abe was a happy lawyer, but he wanted to help make sure slavery didn't spread into the new territories. So he ran for the Senate. Abe gave a speech calling America a house divided. He said, "This government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. It will become all one thing or all the other." So this on a little blurb on this page says fact book. An almanac is a book of information about a given year. It tells the times of sunrise and sunset for that year, as well as cycles of the moon. Farmers can use an almanac to predict the weather and decide when to plant crops. So this was a long time ago, before things like computers and the internet. So this is how they looked up things like the sunrise and sunset and the cycle of the moon back when Abraham Lincoln was alive. And the caption on this page says, Abe had spent his whole life learning to speak. He was not a handsome man, and his voice was shrill. But when Abe spoke, the power of his emotion shone in his eyes, and people were moved. Abe's opponent was a famous politician named Stephen A. Douglas. Douglas saw no need to outlaw slavery in the new territories since the land wasn't ripe for tobacco, cotton, or other slave crops. Abe thought Congress had to preserve the new states as places for poor people to go and better their conditions. Abe suggested a series of debates. The result was America's greatest duel of words. Abe lost the election but won acclaim. Just as he had wrestled the strongest man in New Salem, Abe had battled a political giant and proved himself a man worth watching. And by forcing Douglas to take a public stand, Abe made slavery the issue of the day. The caption here says, Douglas was a well-dressed, well-fed statesman who traveled to each debate in his own private railroad car. Abe arrived in the crowded public train and then rode a hay wagon to his hotel. The two candidates were as different as a purebred poodle and a farmyard hound. Just 2 years later, in 1860, the Republican Party chose Abe to run for president. Abe had helped form the new party, but did not expect this honor. Springfield went wild. A Republican parade that passed the Lincoln home contained so many people it took 8 hours to pass the House. There were more than 2 candidates running for president that year. Abe received only 40% of the votes, but he won. However, Abe lost in every Southern state. Newspapers raged against Lincoln's anti-slavery stance. They even urged the South to prepare for war. So this part says, party politics. The Republican Party was created in Illinois in 1856. They favored rule by representation rather than direct vote. During Lincoln's time, there were several other political parties, including the Democrats, Whigs, and Constitutional Union. The Democratic Party was founded in 1830 on the principles of government by the people and equal rights for all. Created in 1836, the Whig Party opposed the Democrats until it dissolved in 1856. Originally, Whigs were those who supported the American Revolution. So this is the Republican Party symbol, says the caption, and the Democratic Party symbol. And we still have the Republican and Democratic Party today. Election poster showing Abe and his running mate, Hannibal Hamlin. So that is all of the reading that we're going to do for Abraham Lincoln today. That was a little bit longer than the last 2 days. So make sure you're going back in the text to answer the questions.